Wagwan, it is story mother frickin' time. Alright, ladies and gentlemen. So some time ago, I was working in the recovery room, and this was a shift that I did pick up. In the recovery room, we, the nurses, the recovery room nurses, we are responsible for getting the patient's pain under control. We're responsible for getting any nausea under control, for recognizing any signs of a surgery gone wrong, bleeding, fevers, potential infections. Unfortunately, sometimes with certain patients, things can go south really quick, but that is the purpose of the recovery room, to use that time frame, that vulnerable time frame, to be in a closer, more focused area of care so that we can catch it before we send you to either your home or the floor, okay? Where you will be taken care of by one nurse who has 2, 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 other patients. All right. That all being said, I had a patient, okay? This particular patient had an orthopedic procedure. Orthopedic procedures, whenever a nerve block isn't done, can be incredibly painful, and it can be very difficult to get the pain under control. So as patients start to wake up, you'll find that nurses will immediately be like, are you in pain? Are you feeling any pain? Are you nauseous? Let's get on top of it, okay? And that's also the purpose of the report. You know, you get the report from the anesthesiologist so that they can tell you everything that they did and everything that they gave medication-wise, so that you don't go and give more of what they just gave and cause an issue, an overdose, a respiratory suppression for the patient. We're going to revisit that respiratory suppression topic, okay? So this particular patient that I had, we're going to call her Sheila, okay? Sheila had an orthopedic surgery. This patient did not receive a nerve block. The purpose of the nerve block is to tell the nerve not to sense pain. Period. Now, sometimes patients do get nerve blocks and it doesn't work. Something else is blocked, but it's not where they're feeling the pain. This patient did not get a nerve block. Sometimes surgeons are completely against it. I don't have an explanation for that right now. That's another story for another day. I don't know. An anesthesiologist will be like, yeah, sorry, the surgeon was against it. We didn't do a block, but this is the medication that I gave her to try to get the pain, under control or ahead of the pain. Needless to say, the patient did wake up in quite a bit of pain. In the recovery room, we have a lot more leeway with how much medication we can give in a smaller time frame. A lot of these narcotics, the stronger meds, you can give them once every 5 minutes. They're smaller doses, and that's how we keep it controlled, once every 5 minutes for a max dose. Okay, so let's say that the max dose of Dilaudid is 2 milligrams. And they're saying you can give 0.5 every 5 minutes until you hit 2 milligrams, and after that, stop. Cut them off. Move on to the next pain medication. So, I'm sure a lot of people have heard about fentanyl. Fentanyl on the street is not the same as fentanyl in the hospital. We do give fentanyl in the hospital. IV, yes, it can be given. In the hospital, though, we're not giving it to you to get you high. We're giving it to you to get your pain under control. Okay? The issue, though, when you hear about somebody having a fentanyl overdose on the streets, like in the news, obviously it was being done in a non-controlled setting. So obviously nobody was monitoring anybody's oxygenation, heart rate, respiratory effort. That's what we're doing in the hospital. And that's why there are parameters. So it's time for me to give this patient some narcotics. She's in pain. That's my job, okay? So, I go get the fentanyl. And let's say that 50 micrograms of fentanyl is ordered. Not an uncommon order for the recovery room, okay? I know some people are like, 50 mics? Oh, shit. No, settle down, shut up, relax. So, I go get it. And I give it to the patient. Now, remember what I said about respiratory suppression and people taking fentanyl on the streets and overdosing and dying. Narcotics suppress your respiratory effort. It suppresses your need to breathe, your urge to breathe. It relaxes everything. That's not good. That is why people that overdo it on the streets die, because that respiratory effort is suppressed so much that there's no more effort. Therefore, no more breathing. That's what I mean when I say respiratory. We're talking about breathing, okay? The respiratory effort, the breathing effort is suppressed so much. Ain't no space in between my hands right here, okay? It's gone. And then you die. So that's why you don't need to be playing with fentanyl outside of the hospital. Okay? In the hospital, as nurses, when we give these medications, we are looking to see how the patient responds. That is why they're in the recovery room, where we are able to focus on them and see how they do with these medications. It's not uncommon. We like to see everybody's pulse ox between 95 and 100. Okay? If we're seeing 94, if we're seeing 93, we're getting a little concerned. And anything below that, we're like, take a deep breath, bring in that oxygen, right? So when you give a narcotic, even in a controlled setting, in a healthy patient, that oxygenation level will go down. It'll just go down because that's what narcotics do. Again, it suppresses that respiratory effort. But you're healthy, things are going well. The drug was ordered because the doctor already assessed that you can compensate, you can recover from that suppression, that respiratory suppression. So it's okay that the number drops a little bit. Even if we do see it jump down to 94, 93, we'll give it time and make sure that we see that it starts to climb back up. If it doesn't climb, we'll give you oxygen. We will supplement the oxygen for you, but you will recover. Now, let's say that I give a patient 50 mics of fentanyl and their oxygenation goes from 98% to 89%. And it takes a long time and too much oxygen to get that oxygen to come back up. I'm no longer giving that patient any more narcotics because that respiratory effort is sensitive to the narcotics. Okay? I done gave y'all a whole lesson. Anyways, let's go back to the story. So Sheila, my patient, I gave her the 50 mics of fentanyl. Her oxygen did drop to about 94%. I'm not worried. I knew that was going to happen. Everything else still looks exceptional. She's not going into any sort of distress. She's able to take a deep breath and her oxygen is able to come back up. Here's the thing. The surgeon comes in after I pushed the fentanyl as her oxygen is beginning to drop. And he's like, what's going on? Has anybody seen this? Does anybody see what's going on here? 94%, completely unacceptable. I was like, I mean, well, yeah, 94 is a little low. Not completely unacceptable, though. I did just give her pain medication. Okay, I'm explaining this to the surgeon. He's like, well, how much? The ordered amount. Now, let's pause real quick. Surgeons aren't even in control of the pain medication. The anesthesiologist is. So I'm really not trying to call anybody uneducated, but this is not for you, my guy. Like, move. I got it. The anesthesiologist and I have already had a conversation. Like, get out my face. Do what you came over here to do. Assess the incision. Assess the wound. Assess what you came here to assess, bruh. Asking all these questions for. So I told him how much I gave and I confirmed that that was what was ordered. And he's like, you guys have got to keep a better eye on these patients. 94% is in no way acceptable. So my charge nurse is like, well, I mean, it's not unacceptable. It's kind of expected after we give the medications that are ordered to be given. Not this man huffing, puts his hands on his hips, takes his hand off his hips and puts his hand back. And he's like, well, you need to keep an eye on her. And then storms out. What? Bro, what? So I look at the charge nurse. Now, again, y'all, I picked up a shift here. I don't really know these people. So I look at the charge nurse and I'm like, is there something that I'm missing? Like, are we supposed to ignore the pain medication orders? Am I supposed to allow this patient to be in pain? And she was like, no, he's one of the weirder surgeons. Oh, great. Y'all, not the anesthesiologist coming in now, okay, talking about some, hey, Dr. So-and-so, we'll call him Dr. Smith. Dr. Smith just told me that the patient is in respiratory distress. Now, I don't know if y'all remembered a little bit earlier in this story, we talked about what it meant to be in respiratory distress. When the oxygen is getting suppressed so much that you're getting too close to the point of no breathing. Okay? At no point did we enter a realm of respiratory distress. What? Y'all, I cannot tell you how annoyed I get when I feel like I have dealt with something with another adult, another professional, and they go get another professional to deal with it after we've dealt with it. What was that for? What was the point of that? What do we do now? So I was like, do you think, just take a look at this patient. The patient is awake. She's not like wide awake. Remember, she did have anesthesia and I did just give her narcotic. So she's not like, woo, but she's opening her eyes. She's able to look around. She's able to respond to questions and she's still sleepy because she just had surgery. So she's awake enough to say, I feel fine. I'm not having a hard time breathing. So now the surgeon's annoyed. The anesthesiologist is annoyed. And he's like, why would he use that word? Respiratory distress? Why would he come get me and tell me that this patient is in respiratory distress? I don't know, bro. I don't know, y'all. I don't know why he's acting like this. Y'all need to check to see if he's about to enter respiratory distress. Maybe there's a delay of the oxygen traveling to the brain. Ugh, God. Anyways, so the anesthesiologist walks away. Now, keep in mind, the way this recovery room is set up, it's kind of far away from everything. I don't know, it's been such a long time since I've been there, but I definitely felt like I had to go down a whole bunch of halls and like go through a few different rooms to get to the recovery room. So we were a little secluded, you know, like obviously we were close to the OR, but it just seemed so far away from the actual hospital, like deep in the cut of the hospital. So he walks away. I don't know where it is he has to go find the surgeon to let the surgeon know, hey, that's actually not something that we consider respiratory distress. The patient is actually operating within normal limits. Okay? I hear the two of them arguing out in the hallway. And at some point, the surgeon says, don't question my license. Well, something needs to be questioned because you're doing a lot in a situation where a lot is not required. And so the anesthesiologist responds and he's like, look, I'm trying to have a private conversation with you, doctor. Yo, like, what is up? That altercation is all happening in the hallway. The charge nurse gets up and she storms out and she's trying to figure out what's going on. And she comes back in and she was like, I must be missing something. I'm like, bitch, me and you. Because the patient is still doing exceptionally fine. Outrageously fine. Not a single indication of anything going wrong. No signs of bleeding, no signs of infection, no signs of cardiac distress. Nothing is wrong. Everything was done just as it should have been done. Anyways, I ended up having to write an incident report. Obviously, because in no situation can we just pretend that something like this didn't happen, where a surgeon deems that their patient is in respiratory distress and nobody does anything about it. So I don't know if he wanted us to call a rapid response and all have a rapid response is when a team of people that have been deemed to be a part of the rapid response team come and help you get a patient back to a stable setting, their baseline, because they're crashing, and they're crashing too fast for you to handle by yourself, right? So I'm like, what am I supposed to write in this incident report? Like, surgeon came, assessed the patient, determined that the patient was in respiratory distress, when my assessment, the anesthesiologist's assessment, and the charge nurse's assessment all did not coincide with his. So apparently that was what he wanted. He wanted us to call a rapid response, and he felt insulted. This is a conversation that he had with the charge nurse later, because this was a 12-hour shift that I picked up, and obviously he didn't go home. He was hot-headed there with us for the whole day. And apparently he told the charge nurse that we all questioned him, and we should have just took his word for it and called a rapid response. This is the kind of stuff that pisses me off. Like, no one else that was involved in this situation, nobody had any issues with their assessment. Nobody had, what's the right word that I'm looking for? Like, everybody's license were intact. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody was equipped to do their job. So why is it that because you're a surgeon, it is only your word that gets to make sense and nobody else's? That makes no sense. No. Who writes these people up? Like, let's say that I did work there, and he was trying to say that I was being insubordinate or disrespectful or whatever it was he wanted to call it. It would have been his word against mine. That would have been a hard fight. Like, that would have been harder for me. And in some of these situations, like, I'm more grateful that I'm a registry nurse and I'm not tied to a facility, because I don't ever have to go back there and deal with that man again. Ever. Ever, 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 ever. Sheesh. Real quick side note. I do have a brand new website, okay? I'm posting the link in the caption below. I would love for y'all to join my Patreon. I am writing a comic book. I will have more robust updates for y'all on my Patreon. I will announce a release date. And as far as my Seed and Spark campaign, where I was encouraging everybody to go donate, I don't know if you guys have seen a couple of my previous videos where I explained that I probably got only about maybe 40 to 50% of the donations, because Seed and Spark doesn't take the donation when you donate. They do it at the very end of the campaign, and my campaign was for 45 days. So even though I hit the goal, yay, thank you guys so much, I didn't get all of the donations because, you know, some people's accounts are set up for potential fraudulent activity protection, or some people obviously went about their lives and they weren't thinking about the fact that they donated $100 45 days ago, $200, $300 45 days ago. So they spent that money. You know what I'm saying? So there's another donation page platform set up. It's an ongoing thing. So if anybody would like to make any donations, I would love that. I would appreciate that. Back to the story. I did not end up getting in any trouble. No reprimandations were, was that a word? Reprimandings? I was not reprimanded. Okay, I was not disciplined. I wrote the incident report, and I was for sure certain that I was going to get a call from my agency saying that the facility doesn't want me to return, but I did not get that. And on some of these apps, like, you'll see it. You'll see that you are a do not return, but none of that happened. I was just so sure that it would happen because of how belligerent the surgeon was. Like, it was a power trip. Way too much arrogance. Way too much. Just outrageous. Unacceptable. But every experience is a learning experience, I suppose. And, yeah, I'm glad that I stood my ground. And I stuck to my assessment, and I didn't just decide that the patient was in respiratory distress because he said the patient was in respiratory distress. Because no. Anyways, y'all, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining. Subscribe, share the story, tell your friends. Bye.